Aftersun is a 2022 semi-autobiographical coming-of-age drama film written and directed by Charlotte Wells in her featured directorial debut. 20 years after their final holiday at a worn-down resort in Turkey, Sophie looks back on the precious time she shared with her loving yet troubled father, Callum. At 11, on the edge of adolescence, Sophie was unaware of the silent burdens Callum carried beyond his role as a parent. Her memories, tinged with both clarity and uncertainty, form a tender, heart-rending portrait of their relationship, as she attempts to reconcile the father she knew with the man she never fully saw. Alright, so I just watched Aftersun, which I've been really anticipated to see. It felt like I never had the time to watch a film like this because I knew it was going to be such sort of like, emotionally draining. I've heard it was one of the best dramas of 2022. Got all these Oscar nominations. And so, I had to see if, the hype was real, if it was legit. And I have to say right off the bat that this movie marks a stunning directorial debut from Charlotte Wells. What she created here is mesmerizing. It is genuinely heartfelt. It delivers deeply personal and emotionally resonant experiences that I believe were inspired by her own personal memories and perhaps traumatic events in her past. So I always appreciate, a sort of semi-autobiographical film. It's sort of, in that regard, being an A24 film as well, it kind of reminded me of The Farewell in a way, because The Farewell also dealt with some sort of mental health and, depression and, the scars that we never really see on people, and how we always wear a mask every single day. Aftersun is told through the lens of an adult Sophie. Sorry, I can barely see my notes, but yeah, so it's told through the lens of an adult Sophie. It shifts between real and imagined memories, layered with a very nostalgic camcorder footage, which I thought was a very fascinating and also understandable choice. I mean, that's how we sort of view memories, through camcorder footage. The very first scene, is sort of a clip. And so I thought, that was a smart choice. And, the movie also talks about how she, it basically, underlines how Sophie reevaluates her father with a very newfound emotional insights. The film discusses some very, very complex themes. It goes through memory. It talks about mental health, parenthood. Callum is apparently like around the age of 30, I believe. In the movie, probably like turns 30 or 31. But, and of course, Sophie herself is 11. So that just goes to show how young Callum was when he had Sophie, or when he started raising her. And so this also discusses the quiet complexity of childhood. And these are pretty heavy themes, but they are very much explored with so much nuance and so much restraint. It never overwhelms you the themes are never super overbearing, which I really, really appreciate. I love a very, very subtle film. And it definitely requires viewers to read between the lines. And so that could actually be a reason why people might not really find this film too interesting or too, invigorating, because, it's a slow burner. Things might not pop out the way that you expect in this film. I read a review online where someone kept anticipating something big to happen, like this film is setting us up for something, like this huge climactic event that, that will just like shock us. But I have to say that doesn't really happen. This is a very slow burner without any explosions whatsoever. And a lot of people might not like that, but I very much appreciated it. I really felt it was sort of like, a lens into some of the simplicity of the day-to-day interactions between Sophie and her dad. Paul Mescal, huge shout out to Paul Mescal. I'm not gonna lie, he right now Paul Mescal before watching this film, he sort of strikes me as a guy that was sort of getting a lot more praise than he should. He kind of like popped out of nowhere, in my opinion. I was like all of his he's in Gladiator 2. He's about to play one of the Beatles, and I personally have never even seen any of his films apart from Gladiator 2. So I was like, what's the hype behind this guy? But I have to say, Paul Mescal gives a masterful performance. He portrays a man weighed down by unseen emotional struggles while trying to still be this present, loving father. His performance was very much reminiscent of Casey Affleck's performance in Manchester by the Sea. Both men play these very weary, depressed figures, just trying to make it through life. And both have to deal with, like a child or someone younger than them, and they're still trying to figure out how to be a great role model. And I love stories like that. I love character studies. Newcomer Frankie Corio, hopefully I pronounced that right, she shines in her debut. She's remarkable. She has remarkable authenticity and chemistry with Mescal. Both of them just click together. The dynamic between them is so raw and real. It's a bond that feels very intimate, and it truly feels like you're peering into, like very emotionally intimate and pregnant scenes, that you really shouldn't be looking at. We get some of the like there's a couple of scenes that are just so raw and so, I don't know, just raw in a way that like you feel like you shouldn't be seeing it whatsoever. Invasive, I guess is the word. It felt so invasive. The cinematography is outstanding, very unusual. It's in a way. There were a couple moments where like I don't know if I feel it, but then there's like several moments where it just is so astounding. The cinematographer George Olke, I forgot the last name, but he crafts a very warm and evocative visual that beautifully underscores the tone and the themes of this film. Oliver Coates' melodic score that enhances the emotional depth. So of course, shout out to them. But yeah, at the end of the day, subtlety is this film's very strength. It eschews exposition for implication. We are never bogged down with all these plot elements. Callum, for example, Callum, is a single father, but we're never really given much information about, why Callum and the mom are separated. What led to the separation? Are they divorced? Was there a fight or an argument? We're not given that exposition. And to me, that's perfect. That's how I want it, because we're not trying to learn about that. We're trying to get deeper understanding between the dynamic between Callum and his daughter. So I really love how the story, at no point did it go on a tangent or go veer off the road at any point. And the subtlety also speaks volumes through the silence, through gestures, through the atmosphere. You really, really care about these characters. And like I said before, that the scenes are just very simple interactions between them. Nothing too crazy, It's so simple, and yet it's so effective because the characters are so well... the performances are impeccable, but, the writing just feels so, so real. And again, I just love films like that. But yeah, this is an understated yet powerful film, a quiet meditation on love, loss, memory that leaves an emotional impact. And yeah, it's very clear now to me why this was rated as one of the best films of 2022. A lot of people say it's the best film that A24 has even ever produced. And to be honest, I think that's warranted. This is so moving. It is so beautifully constructed. It's a beautifully constructed drama where every technical and narrative aspect and element of this film just works harmoniously. You know, not one thing is at fault with this film. But yeah, I mean, the only flaw I could even just say is, yeah, it is sort of a slow burner. You know, you think things are going to pick up, but things just sort of like, however you want to say, like devolve into things. Like stuff just like moves, you know, it just moves like this and nothing really spikes or nothing really drops. And yeah, you're just really but that to me is like marks, a great understanding of, you know, character studies in general. I mean, that's kind of what character studies are. They're just recognizing their daily challenges, you know, their daily emotions. Yeah, I thought film is sort of brilliant. There's another thing I want to say. I think, you know, there have been analysis videos on Aftersun, because there is a very there's a metaphor to this film. You know, it has some deep symbolism to this, which I actually really enjoyed. It's very nuanced. It's very intelligent. I'm like, there's a scene, like if I had to say like a favorite scene of this film, it would definitely be, I guess, what you could consider the climax of this film. It's like this rave scene. And, you know, Paul Mescal is dancing. He's got some great dance moves, which the running joke is that he dances terribly, but I think he dances amazingly. And, you know, it just intercuts between that moment of when he's dancing in the past and then, you know, of him dancing in this other rave in sort of like the present. And apparently it's like this metaphor of how, I guess, like sort of claustrophobic and how trapped he is internally. I just thought it was brilliant, and it kind of left me curious once the movie ended. You know, I love when filmmakers take risks like this, and especially given that this is a writer-director, you know, Charlotte Wells wrote and directed the film. I just think it's so brilliant. You know, I love ambiguous sort of films that tap into these sort of raw, unexplored energies. But yeah, I mean, Aftersun is such an incredible and moving film. Deeply recommend watching this. You know, I really hope this is a movie that is not forgotten, because once again, it is really good. I will give Aftersun a 9 out of 10. But yeah, that's pretty much it. Hope you enjoyed. See ya.